Howdy, everybody. All right. So today's video, we're gonna talk about the hero contracts because we're getting close. I'm sure everybody's getting close to getting their Krom or whoever that you chose, and we need to talk about who should be the next one that you get because you only get two of the contract heroes before they move you to the next tier of contract heroes, and we're going to go through talk about all of the heroes we have so far and my choices, why I made my choices, and why you should make your choices. So here we're going to start with the first contract that we get between the green Lucilicca, the blue Krom, and the red LaiRei, who's hanging out here way in the back. You can see her little bit of red. So of course most of everybody went with Krom, but the more and more I think about it, and the more and more I kind of analyze it, because the very first contract you do is 15 days, and I feel like now Krom is not the best option for the very first contract. Now, before you lose your mind, hear me out here. The reason why I say this is because mostly you need Krom for like the the late in game stuff. He's going to be great for the raid. He's going to be amazed for PvP. For most of you, PvP is not going to be important because you're just farming potions anyway. And then I find him useful for the final boss in terms of taking first turn and not getting completely wrecked by Kartus on extreme, which is still kind of happening right now on my Korean account. But that's neither here nor there. Prior to that, he can be great on the extreme stages, but he's definitely not needed. I didn't start using him because I didn't have him really built up, and the only thing I did use him for was for PvP. That was it until the raid came out. Who I think should be next in line, or rather first choice, is the green Lucilicca. It's kind of why she here. And this is who I chose to be my next contract. Now, it's a toss up between her and the red LaiRei. Now, the reasoning I say it's a toss up is because a lot of it stems on what you, the individual, you, not what I say, not what this guy say, not what that guy say, but you, the individual, what do you really want and need? Now, I choose Lucilicca just because I tested her out. I've seen her power. She doesn't have any AoE damage, so she's not exactly a farmer, but she's a boss killer. And you're like, yeah, boss killer, that's cool. No, she is the boss killer. So far, there is no F2P way within a decent amount of time of clearing the extreme difficulty. So a lot of people are going to be at 99% for quite some time, and I'm seeing her as the solid damage option.
And in the meantime, remember, it's all just a theory. A game theory. Thanks
for you to have, just because her second skill, Needle Shot, which attacks the selected enemy, damage increase according to their current health. So the more HP they have, the more damage she does. So granted, the damage is going to start getting lower as the enemy's health get lower, but it's still really great nonetheless. She's going to be crazy for your guild raid, like best damage dealer for guild raid F2P, and she's going to kill bosses. Like I'm going through extreme mode just like 2-3 turns, and extreme mode the bosses have a lot of health, the regular enemies have a lot of health, but 2-3 turns of her just cycling and she's just completely decimating every boss in her path, even the fire ones, as long as she crit. And I got good crit on her, so she does damage. Then her burst does a pretty decent damage as well. What makes her the outlier and what stands out the most is the self sustain that she has. Because when she does this, she gets her shield, granted based on her maximum health, and she does got a pretty decent base health once 6-star. And her first skill is healing herself into proportion of the damage she deals, so she's gonna pretty much fill up her health bar if she's doing high damage onto bosses. And she's a striker. A striker, people. Like, that just already bees knees. And the reason why I am going to choose her for my second contract, and I say you should choose her for your second contract over LaiRei. But let's not count LaiRei out either. Let's take a look at her. All right, I've also had her built up, and she was literally the very first contract period out of any account that I had that I chose. Mostly for the waifu aesthetic, mostly. But honestly, it was because I wanted her to be my farmer. I figure like, yeah, if I can get me a solid farmer, I'll be great. 15 days was a long time. I did have a pretty good farmer, but once I got into extreme, I noticed that you need at least 2 AoE type heroes to dish out damage to like clear stuff decently without getting completely wrecked. Because that was the time where I started building my blue Vanessa, because I never had her. Like, I ended up getting her, but I didn't really level her up, and I didn't have enough agates to 5-star her. So she was just sitting around because I was using Green Charlotte and Red Vanessa my first playthrough of the game. I was just only using them while everybody else was on the blue Vanessa game. Blue Vanessa. And I know a lot of people now like, Gamer, you talk so highly about her. Yeah, because she revives things and it makes 3 stars easy, but it's not about her. LaiRei. Alright. This burst, which costs quite a bit, is really good though. It's its best place is kind of like PvP ass. Maybe she be like the last one in rotation. Not exactly the last, but go after everybody to get enough burst so she can do this and reduce the action gauge and dish out some good damage. This is AoE. You get decent enough damage on her. It can kill things, but I mean, the resistance debuff is not really all that great. What is good is this first skill, because outside of Frem, who has a 2-turn death break, she has a 1-turn death break, but you have to skill her up to max to get 2 turns out of it. But a 1-turn death break can be the outlier of win and loss. I show people all the time like what my KR main can do in T8, because it's the only way I can beat the bosses if I beat it in like the first or second turn. If I get the death break, I one shot it, and if I don't get the death break, then it takes 2 turns for me to kill it. But that's usually how it goes, and she's the one that's doing the death break. But other than that, that's pretty much what she's for. She is just to be able to do extra AoE damages. Now, the fact that she's a warrior makes her a little bit tankier, but since she's not a striker, she's not going to be able to do as much damage as a striker. So she's going to need some really solid gear to like one-shot those extreme waves, or you'll be sitting there seeing her hit stuff, but not completely kill everything most of the time, or something like that. So I say it's a toss-up between red LaiRei and green Lucilicca, because it's what do you need more? Are you looking to be able to clear bosses a lot faster, or are you looking to be able to clear waves a lot faster, so to speak? Like, she's going to be a lot more useful in PvP, where Green Lucilicca can be used in PvP, but she's going to be more useful in the raid. I would think if you were spending a little more, maybe the red LaiRei would be a little bit better because she can be a nice PvP tool for you. But if you're F2P, I would say Green Lucilicca would be better, because getting more score in guild, especially since we're about to have this update where the guild stuff is about to be separated. So the more points you're able to get, the more rewards your guild is able to get. So getting Green Lucilicca would do you more better than getting the red LaiRei. But they both are great, and I say choose what fits you the most, or what waifu you like the most. If you like dragon chicks, go for her. If you like elf chicks, go for her. And that's where that stands. Moving on. The next contracts is that you, after you get your 2 from the last one, is gonna be blue Lumie, red Alev, and green Walther. I'm gonna tell you right off rip, do not pick Green Walther. Trash. Just straight trash. Garbage. We're just gonna pretend like he's not even here. So pretty much you're gonna pick these 2. Now who you pick first depends on, once again, what are you looking to use them in? we're gonna start over here with the blue Lumie. Alright, Blue Lumie is high end PvP meta on KR. She's on a lot of defenses. And we can read here on her burst attacks all enemies 100% chance to reduce their action gauge by 20% and 60% chance to inflict sleep for one time. So she can sleep. You be out of there, you knocked out, tired. Her second skill gives her that says attacks all enemies 80% chance to reduce the action gauge by 20%. So this can max out at 100% and on a 3-turn cooldown, which is pretty decent, and extra damages. But 20% action gauge lost off that. This makes her actually better than the Blue Pup. Blue Pup will probably do more damage just because he's a striker, but this will be better suited for the extra utility in what she's able to provide and giving herself a speed buff, which can be great in like story farming content type of situations. She'd just be really strong. She has a passive here that gives her extra damages to the fire element, so she can just like really put out more damage when you farm and fire type stuff, maybe in the halls. Now, once again, it's gonna all depend. Do you want an extra farmer type hero that can be great in PvP? I would opt to go with her probably first if you were to be picking up the green Lucilicca as the last contract, so the very next one will be decent to be her. Or do we want to go with more of the boss killing type of hero? Red Alev. Now, she is not exactly that much different because we can go here and we can see that she has two skills that does AoE. I don't know why it doesn't say this does AoE, but it does hits everybody. It's not just one hero. Her burst hits everything and it ignores defense long as she crit. So she's definitely gonna want to have max crit out. So you're gonna have to have a good set. And she's a striker. You're a fire striker. So she's gonna want to have max crit for her to ignore defense and do lots of damage, which is great on bosses, great in the raid. But she does have an AoE on her second skill, which makes her a great farmer and excellent for PvP as well. So she could be the choice that you make first. Attacks all enemies, heals the user in proportion to the crit hit damage dealt if the attack is a critical hit. So this is also scales off her crit. So she wants to crit and she heals herself, giving her a little bit of sustain based off of whatever the critical damage may be. So she can full heal herself, hitting all enemies, which makes her an even better farmer just because she has the sustain and all the other great stuff that goes along with it. More damage to the earth element. So greens get them hands, more sustain in her HP. Then her first skill here attacks the selected enemy, gains an additional turn if the enemy dies. More turns can't be granted afterwards. And you get some extra burst gauge type stuff here too. So she's gonna be really solid on the farming part. Probably a better farmer than the blue Lumie, and just because of what her kit does. Even then, it's like a toss up. I just finally finished the contract on my alternate KR account with her, and I've been using her, and I've been liking everything that I've been seeing with her so far. So I pretty much got all the contract heroes so far. Now I can't go over the Green Walther because I know there's going to be a few outliers that's going to probably pick him up just because. And I can tell you why I say don't pick him up and why some of you might like the Dapper Daddy. So we're gonna go with his first skill here. Attacks the selected enemy, increases defense for one turn. So he gives himself a chance to have some extra defense. He happened to be a guardian as well, so he's a tank for you. Then he has the second skill that attacks everything in 60% chance to provoke everyone, which is actually a great skill. Being able to AoE provoke is nice. This will be good in PvP. Not so much in the raid and possibly on some farming type stuff. It will be kind of decent. Now, what made me wish I didn't pick him up on my main KR but I thought was his second skill is his burst, which is attacks all enemies, fills the user's action gauge by 20%. Now, you might be thinking, like, there's nothing wrong with that, that's bad, but it's on his burst. Now, I do see some people using him very few using him on the KR. So he's not super meta, but he is an option that they have. And the way I figured is he probably cuts in between, or is like after you fill up enough burst between the first few heroes that move around. He comes in, steals more action gauge, push your team even more so you can do more damage, which isn't bad if you're going for a strategy like that. But I wouldn't exactly pick him up because he seems so PvP specific. Like, this is the only place that he will be used, and there's so many other turn bar gauge boosters that I deem as better. I guess if he's tanky enough, maybe he can provoke and everybody just gets stuck on him provoking. Granted, you don't have enough spirit to push or whatever how you would go about using him, but other than that, I don't really see him doing much of anything important for anybody. Video's getting long. Let's move on to the last contract. All right, the last set of contracts you're gonna have the green LaiRei, the blue Lucilicca, and the red Krom. Now, right off rip, you want to get the red Krom. Definitely first. I'm leaning towards him being the F2P route of clearing Cartis on extreme. I've seen it done in a video with red Krom, blue Krom, and the red Johann. I'm sure something else can take the place. Green Lucilicca as the red Johann, so that can be a thing as well. And I think what makes him stands out the most, and let's go ahead and take a look at him, is his first skill that attacks the selected enemy, 70% chance to inflict wither debuff that prevents healing for 1 turn, 10% chance to ignore enemy's defense. So he can ignore defense, but that's not really what it is. It is the heal block. I'm glad they got the. I don't know. Maybe I was reading wrong before because I didn't know what Wither did for the longest, but it's a heal block. He's the only hero in this game that has an heal block. No other hero has a heal block, and it's on his first skill, so he can use this every turn. Then his second skill increases the user's attack power, crit rate hit, and critical hit damage. Immediately gains a turn, more turns can't be granted. So he can get this, get a turn, and go right into the first skill. Heal block, and then dish out a pretty decent amount of damage, which can go down to a 3 turn cooldown. And he gets a lot of burst gauge. You get a lot of burst gauge from this skill, which will be helpful because you're going to need some burst gauge to be able to cycle and get the right burst off every turn. His burst attacks all enemies, grants an extra turn if an enemy dies, more turns can't be granted. This one is not that important, but I wouldn't be personally trying to build him for pure attack, even though his kit reeks of damage. I at least think for the final boss, I will probably have him on some type of crit build, but with more HP and defense for survival capabilities. But other than that, yeah, I will build him for pure damage. But this is my thoughts and my theory so far behind this, and the reason why I say he should be the first to pick up once you get to this contract in particular.
And in the meantime, remember, it's all just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching.
Now for the other two. Now the other two, we back into the toss-up mix of everything. Now the green LaiRei. I think I'm personally want to go with her, even though I didn't pick her on my main KR. She's the one that I didn't choose because I went with the blue Lucilicca. We'll talk about that in a sec because I wanted to test out some stuff. But I think she's the better of the two. And the reason behind that is just because of her skill kit. She is a striker. So in her first skill says attacks the selected enemy, increases the critical hit damage by 10%, stacks up to 5 times. This effect expires after defeating a wave of enemies. So on bosses, you will have this maxed out 5 times and just doing damage every time she attacks. So that is great. Then her second skill says attacks all enemies, increase the user's critical hit rate for 2 turns. So she can attack everything and get her crit up, which means she's going to be able to do more crit damage. So you can focus on giving her more crit damage, more other stats, and not so much on the crit side of things because of that skill, which can go down to a 3 turns, can last up to 3 turns for the buff. So after the buff is go down, she can put it right back up. That is great. Then her burst says attacks all enemies increases the user's attack power for 2 turns if it's a critical hit. So yeah, she definitely gonna want crit to be able to do it, but you're gonna give her crit with her second skill, so this is gonna be great on her burst. Then she gives herself critical hit damage on her passive here, and more damage reduction from the water element. So she got a little bit of sustain against them. And it's just because of all of the self buffing and the extra damage that she can bring out of her kit, and she's a striker, is the reason why I would say she would be the next contract. Now, the blue Lucilicca, this one is a little strange for me. Now, the reason why I ended up choosing her on my KR main was because of her burst. Her burst, granted, it's a 3 spirit cost. It doesn't go down from 3, which sucks, but it says attacks the selected enemy 50% chance to inflict 5 stacks of sat damage on each enemy for 1 turn. I guess she attacks 1, but everybody can get up to 5. So chances to inflict 5 stacks. Yeah, so each enemy can get 5 stacks. So if it's just the boss, let's say like the raid boss, this could possibly get more. I've tested it a couple times. I mean, it's a 50% chance, so chances are, and it can go up to a 70%. So chances are it doesn't always work according to plan. SAP isn't horrible in the game, but it isn't that great either. I just wanted to test it out, and I don't think she's that great because of that, but she does have this skill. Needle Shot says attacks the selected enemy, removes all buffs applied to the enemy. So she's kind of like a better version of the Green Astrid, just because she can strip everything. So for bosses, that will be kind of great. But by the time you get to this contract, you're probably going to have most, if not all, story content completed. So for this might be great PvP, or maybe some future content that they might add. But right now, I don't see this fitting into the game currently. But then we have this first skill, the subjugation, attacks the selected enemy 70% chance to reduce the attack power for 1 turn. Oh, she has an attack break. You're gonna have plenty of those. So she's not nothing groundbreaking, nothing broken in her kit, nothing that stands out really for her. She can give herself extra debuff rate, so she definitely want to have debuff rate to be able to land and do all of her skills. But outside of that, I don't think she is the best option to go with. So this is the hero contracts. More than likely on my current new account, I'm going to go with the order I said for this contract in particular. Hopefully this help you guys make some kind of decision on who you may be choosing, whether you're going for waifu, whether you're going for more PvP, more story farming capabilities, or more boss killing capabilities. Let me know in the comment section below who you're going to choose to pick up, because I like to read those comments. If you agree, disagree, you can leave that down in the comment section below and we can discuss it. Some of you guys been disagreeing with some of the stuff I've been talking about, and we have had some decent conversations. I like to have more of that because it helps me as a content creator grow, and it helps the community grow and get a better understanding of the game. So until then, this is the Gamer Dude signing out saying much love, God bless, deuces.